welcome to the 10th episode of the Middle School AD podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Fredrickson. And today we sit down with Dr. Chris Hobbs, who is the Instructional Advancement Director at Second Baptist School in Texas. Today's discussion, we talk about how ADs believe in their coaches, metacognition and critical thinking, bold leadership, leadership books, and passion. There's a lot in this episode that we hope that you get better from. But before we dive in, here's a word from our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by Gipper, the preferred sports graphics platform for ADs. Start creating professional-looking sports graphics today by starting a free trial. Middle School AD podcast listeners get 10% off any plan when you use code MSAD10 at Gipper.com. As an athletic administrator, you understand better than most how much support matters. Support for your coaches, support for your athletes, and support for your department are crucial to providing the best possible experience for every student. Snap Mobile is now your one-stop for all the tools you need to support your department. With our expanded suite of products, you can now raise money, open team stores, schedule and manage your facilities, and communicate with your athletes, parents, and stakeholders with the same level of care you've come to expect from Snap. Visit snapraise.com today to schedule a demo with your local Snap Mobile representative.
Hometown Ticketing makes it fast and easy to buy tickets on your school's website or in the new Hometown Fan app. It's simple. Just search for your school, buy your tickets, and they'll be right there in your account, ready to be scanned when you get to your event. Download the Hometown Fan app today.
I think it's important when you work with a company and you have a relationship with a company. You want to make sure that the folks that you're dealing with are people who kind of get it. They understand what you're going through.
I love things where it's a one-stop shop.
And the feedback that we've gotten from our parents this year has been superb.
Students, they know that here's where I go to do this, and then it's taken care of.
It's been able to make things easier for our kids to get to participate.
And so the coaches can see that right now leading into that season, and they can kind of prepare and kind of get themselves ready.
I think the person who is scared of software, they can still navigate it.
They're not having to have stacks and stacks of paperwork on their desk, but everything is digital for them, and so it makes it really easy.
The AD role, it saves me a tremendous amount of time, which time's everything.
I would just say that to give Final Forms a shot, it's going to save you a lot of time and energy in the end. You'll be extremely happy if you make that choice.
This is Game Time. Neptune Game Time creates a high-energy game day atmosphere that your players and fans will love. Every song in our database is 100% lyric safe, which means you can stop screening music for good. Game Time also provides custom messaging to help you promote your upcoming events, concessions, and event-specific announcements. And it gives you the opportunity to sell sponsorships on your station that will generate revenue for your athletic department. Amp up your game day with Game Time.
Welcome to another episode of the Middle School AD podcast. Today we are speaking with Dr. Chris Hobbs, who is the Director of Institutional Advancement at Second Baptist School in Texas. Chris is a certified Master Athletic Administrator and has been an AD for 16 years. Dr. Hobbs has been published by the NIAAA and the NIAA magazine around 4 to 5 times. Dr. Hobbs, thank you for jumping on with us. I know you've gotten a bunch of references from mentors with a couple of other episode guests that we've had. So thank you for squeezing it in with us.
Thomas, thank you for having me on, and thank you for all the great work that you're doing, connecting all these ADs and exchanging all these great ideas. So I'm grateful to be here.
Good deal. So I know you're kind of out of the AD world right now, but kind of more on the instructional side, but just tell us a little more about your journey and your journey as an AD, and then kind of what led you to the role you are in today.
Yes. So I was born and raised by educators. My father to this day continues to be an educational leader in a small private Christian school in Western Maryland. I grew up in the schools that he was running, as did my 2 younger brothers, and then had a great college basketball coach at a small Division III Christian college up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, that had just a huge impact on my life. It might as well have been playing for Kentucky for me. I loved it. It mattered like crazy. It mattered like crazy to him. He was a psychopath in all the right ways. And so that continued my, I guess, just nurturing and love for being in the educational world. And then right after college, got a chance to jump into coaching and teaching. Loved that. Became an unofficial assistant AD, kind of designated myself as that in a Christian school right outside Washington, D.C., and helped the AD with all sorts of stuff. And then kind of as a result of that, fell butt backwards into being an AD, probably a little bit earlier than I should have, but that was God's plan for my life. And then that began a journey of being an AD for about 16 consecutive years in the Washington, D.C. area, and then back up in New Jersey, right outside New York City, where I'm a native, New Jersey native. And then spent about 10 years there, and then spent about 5 years as an AD in West Palm Beach, Florida. And so that was kind of my 16-year journey as an athletic director. I loved it. Loved the relationship with the coaches, with the student athletes, with the parents of student athletes. And then just as things evolved in athletic administration, as we all know, particularly probably accelerated by the pandemic, it created some opportunities to lead an athletic department in a unique way that then kind of was the introduction into what I do now here at Second Baptist School in Houston, Texas, where I'm the director of institutional advancement. What that means is I supervise admissions, advancement, marketing, and communications for a four campus school system that's about to be 6. And it has been awesome. If I want to simplify it, I'm just kind of the megaphone for the institution, making sure all of the right news is moving around and all the right people are involved. And so, and got really a taste for that as an athletic director in a unique setting in West Palm Beach, Florida at the King's Academy. So that's kind of my journey. There was a kind of a parallel journey as a varsity basketball coach for a long time as well. A very, very special time in my life. Love all my guys that I coach, continue to stay close in touch with them. Love all the coaches that I got a chance to lead, continue to stay in touch with a lot of them. And so just great education, working in education has been very, very good to me.
Good deal. It's fun to see, where everyone's kind of gone and especially bouncing all over the US. I haven't taken that trip yet. So that I want to, I don't know if I can convince my wife to move to another state. So, we'll do that and go from there. So kind of, who's been your biggest mentor, and why?
Yeah. So seasons of life, I'm 44 now, so I'm not old, I don't think, but I'm not young either. And so I've had a few seasons of life. I've got 21, 18, and 16-year-old kids. So I'm about to graduate, one from college, graduate another one from high school, another one halfway through high school. So definitely have had some seasons of life now. And so probably early in my life, it was certainly my college basketball coach had a huge impact on my life. And then probably early in my career, a lot of impact from an AD, the first AD I worked for, Alan Edgar. Just a wonderful AD that was passionate about educational-based athletics. And then Bill Bills. When I returned to New Jersey, I took over the athletic department that had been born and raised by Bill Bills. He was the patriarchal member of the athletic department. And so I had 10 great years there. And at no point was I ever leading my own athletic department. I was leading Bill's athletic department for 10 years. And that was just a special time and a special relationship. He was very gracious to me, had a huge impact on me. And I got to be an AD in the Greater Middlesex Conference in that kind of mid-career stage, and got to rub shoulders with some of the best ADs in the country that all happened to be kind of gathered there in central New Jersey. Individuals that are in the Athletic Administrators Hall of Fame in New Jersey or the NIAAA Hall of Fame. And they were just great to me. They dragged me along into ad hoc committees I probably didn't have any business being on, but they liked me and brought me into that. And so I got to really see a vision for what it looked like to be a very strong educational leader that happens to sit in the seat of the athletic director in a school setting. That was probably the example of all of those ADs in the Greater Middlesex Conference. More recently would be Dr. Jimmy Scroggins, who was the pastor of the church I attended in West Palm Beach, Florida. I got to coach his kids. I got to know him really up close and personal. just a very, very dynamic leader, a bold leader, and yet is really, really down to earth. And then the man I work for now is almost a lifelong friend, Dr. Don Davis, another really bold leader that is just been awesome to kind of work shoulder to shoulder with him recently. And then probably most importantly, and I haven't stated it yet, is my father. My father's had a huge impact on my life, continues to have a huge impact on my life, just loves what he does in education, bounces out of the door every day to go to work, particularly loves middle school students. Even though he's the head of an entire school, he loves the middle school age. And so he's just an incredibly wise man, an incredibly content man. And so it's just been a joy to be raised by him.
Good deal. Yeah, it's always good to hear where, not only where we came from, but who kind of helped us get there. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's always important to give those people a couple of little shout outs, and because sometimes they may not know what type of impact they had on us, and sometimes maybe we don't know what type of impact they had on us till years later. So
that's very true.
That's good. So kind of jumping straight in your opinion, what do you think the biggest challenge that middle school ADs and athletics is facing today?
Yeah. So the middle school age is just such a really unique age. Some people, those that are in education, would kind of snicker and giggle because we know that middle schoolers can be complicated. I think the great challenge for middle school ADs is to help the student athletes and their parents, because in so many instances, a big part of education is guiding and mentoring and consulting with the parents of the students that you're working with. So the big challenge for middle school ADs is to help middle school student athletes and their parents really understand the nuances of that age and stage and what the biggest ROIs are in that age and stage. So quickly we want to look into the next level, in all areas of life. We're always thinking about the next level, and we try to replicate or imitate what we're seeing at the next level, when probably your biggest ROI is to simply embrace the level you're at and take full advantage of that period. And that actually is what opens the door for you to allow to go to the next level. And so I think in the athletic context, middle school student athletes and their parents really struggle to understand that. I think middle school ADs have an amazing opportunity to be thought leaders in this area and help guide these families to understanding the unique nuances and the biggest ROIs of that age and stage.
Yeah, I think that hits it dead on. Like I said, we've talked a lot on here, just the experience of the middle school athletic departments. And like you said, why do they have to wait until high school to get a certain experience? Whatever that experience is that you want to bring to your school. Same thing with high school. Why they got to wait till college to get that experience? So I think that's good. I think nobody's kind of brought it up that way. So I think that's a good way to kind of look at it is we're always looking ahead. It's like, well, when you get there, you'll do this, you'll do that, or whatever. And why not at the middle school? Why can't? Because we are the ones that are introducing them to school-based athletics. So why can't they start off with a great experience? Why they got to wait till they get to the next level? So that's good stuff. Coach, so you kind of mentioned in our pre-questionnaire that during your dissertation, you studied how ADs can enhance the belief of their coaches. Can you explain a little more on this?
Yeah. So for any athletic directors listening and is kind of considering engaging in graduate work, whether it's a master's degree or doctoral work, I would encourage them to engage in a major or a point of emphasis or an academic focus that is very broad to education, and then take your assignments and narrow them into athletic administration in the educational context. And so that's something I did quite a bit throughout my doctoral work. I've got a doctor of education in educational leadership, but I did a lot of looking into, through the assignments, the role of the athletic director in an educational setting. And so that ended up making the grind of doctoral work actually pretty valuable and pretty enjoyable. And so my dissertation, I did exactly that. And I studied the transformational leadership behaviors. Transformational leadership is a very particular framework of leadership. Transformational leadership behaviors of athletic administrators in a school context, and how it impacts the self-efficacy of their head coaches. And efficacy is a big word for belief. Like what can ADs do, and how can they lead in a way that convinces coaches to believe in themselves and what they're doing, was really kind of the nuance of that. And so there's three things that came out. A lot came out of a dissertation project, but three things that I go back to often if ADs really want to enhance the efficacy of the coaches they're leading. They really want to convince those coaches to believe in themselves and believe in the important work they're doing as coaches. The first thing that they're going to want to do is they're going to want to make sure that they create clear expectations. What are the expectations for the coaches? And so this requires ADs to really think through what is a framework in our school context of what a great coach looks like. And then how clearly am I communicating that? And how often am I communicating that to my coaches? And there's a million great things coaches can do. And every athletic director's got to really narrow it down to what are, the top 3, top 4, top 5 that work best in the context that we're in, the community that we're in. And that answer will be unique to every school. But ADs, if they want to enhance the belief of the coaches that they're leading, then they've got to create clear expectations. The second thing they've got to do is they've got to celebrate the coaches openly. And this is where social media has been such a positive tool, where athletic directors can go out there and celebrate all the great things that are happening inside of their athletic departments. And so there's Scott Eblin wrote a great book called The Next Level. And in that book, one of the things, it's the only quote I remember from the book. I enjoyed the book. I just don't remember what I enjoyed about it, except for this one quote. And that is that the work no longer speaks for itself. You see, in a society in which everyone is over-informed and platformed. We're over-informed because we consume so much information through basically the internet and, these devices in our pocket. And then we're platformed. We can all go out and start a social media account and have our platform. Whether we got 10 followers or 10,000 followers, we have a platform. And because society is overinformed and platformed, they demand a narrative now. They demand that the people they follow, the institutions they follow, the organizations they follow, they demand that those places provide them a narrative for why they're involved. And if they don't, they'll provide their own narrative. And we often know that narrative is not good. And so one of the reasons that the work no longer speaks for itself is because of an over-informed and platformed society. And so I think it's almost an expectation now, not just a nice add-on. It's almost an expectation now that educational leaders, really leaders in any industry, take the good work that their people are doing out into the spotlight. You got to take that work out there and you got to celebrate your people openly. And that, honestly, in my opinion, is one of the easiest and most enjoyable things to do in an athletic administrator's role, because the scoreboard makes it so clear sometimes when someone's achieving. You see so many great-hearted people that are coaching in schools. These are altruistic people. These are people that are in it for the right reasons. You see a one-off on social media, some horrific story, is some knucklehead that was coaching in an educational context and just got it all wrong. That is not 99% of the people that are coaching in schools. 99% of the people that are coaching in schools are doing it because they love kids, they love the sport, and they see an opportunity to use the sport to impact the kids. And so it's just so, in my opinion, easy to take the achievement of your coaches, the accomplishment of your coaches, the motivation of your coaches, to take it into the spotlight and celebrate that openly. So if you're gonna help lead coaches in a way that helps them to believe in themselves, you want to create clear expectations, you want to celebrate them openly, and you want to console them quietly. And that word console is a unique word. I think right to the forefront of our minds, we think about putting an arm around someone that's hurting. We console them, but console is also giving them guidance when they need guidance, sometimes if they don't even know they need guidance. And so you always want to console, maybe put the word in there, critique your coaches quietly. I always wanted to be, and I still want to be, the type of leader that my people want around when it's all going wrong, right? Like, aspire to be the type of AD that your coaches want around when they just lost the big game, right? When your best player just sustained a season-ending injury, and what looked like the best season in school history is now going to be a total dud. Be the type of AD that the coaches want around when it's all falling apart. That's part of consoling quietly, right? Like a million people are going to call your football coach, your basketball coach, your lacrosse coach when you get the big win. A million people are going to call them, right? You want to be there, you want to fist bump them and all, but the return on that investment is moderate, mild maybe. But you want to be the first one to call when they lose the big game. Be the first one to call when tragedy strikes their program. Be the first one to call when the parents are so mad at them. Be the first one to call there, and you'll do a great job consoling quietly. And then give them, this is part of consoling quietly, give them real feedback. Because we're overinformed, we're a smart society, right? We're not a bunch of knuckleheads. We know when things aren't going well. And most of the coaches that ADs are leading, they know when they're not hitting the mark. And so there's an authenticity, there's a trust that's enhanced when an AD will go talk to a coach when they're not hitting the mark. Because you got a smart coach. They probably know they're not hitting the mark, and they're probably just waiting to see if what you say is important in the athletic department that's not being attained at the moment is actually important by your willingness to boldly, graciously yet boldly, go address them on that and go console them quietly. You don't make it a big public thing. You don't embarrass them. You don't talk to them right after a game or right after a bad practice when emotions are high. You find the right time to talk to them, but you definitely go console them in that way as well. And so create clear expectations, celebrate openly, and console quietly. If you do those three things, you're probably well on your way to inspiring a bunch of coaches to really believe in the work they're doing.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's the podcast in itself. We could just end it right there and say this was a success. That kind of goes along with, all the people that I think one way or form we probably all heard of Jeremy Boone speaking on leadership, and especially if you were in Nashville, you heard him. And he always ends, and I kind of have it at, I used to have it at the bottom of my email is, if your presence doesn't make an impact, your absence won't make a difference. And that goes along with really everything you just said. Because the presence can be, supporting that coach. The presence could be putting out stuff on social media, but the presence is also going to have those tough conversations. So yeah, all that's good stuff. We know why now you were successful in your doctorate. So that would have been fun to actually read. You also mentioned that ADs need to have critical thinking and metacognition. And so you explained that those are similar, but they're different. So can you kind of dive into what you mean by those two?
Yeah. So there's a lot of incredible thought leaders out there in books and podcasts that are talking about how focus is a superpower. Because we're overinformed, there's some stats out there that say we consume 100 times more information in one day than someone did in the 1800s in their entire lifetime. And so we're just over-informed. We consume too much information, and I'm as guilty as anybody. But one of the ways that you can tap into this superpower that is focus is you've got to take time to think about what you're thinking about. That's what metacognition is. Thinking about what you're thinking about. And it has a way of kind of unwinding and untangling your brain so that you can think clearly about things. You can see one of the great powers of boredom. And you can read this. Cal Newport, who's written a couple New York Times bestsellers, talks about this, I believe. Craig Rochelle, who's written a great book called Winning the War in Your Mind. These are important thought leaders, and they talk about how important boredom is. And your brain doesn't become bored until you've been bored for at least 15 minutes. I'm sorry, your brain doesn't become creative until you've been bored for 15 minutes. Think about that, Thomas. When's the last time you were bored for 15 consecutive minutes? I couldn't even tell you. I don't think I've been bored for 15 consecutive minutes in a decade.
Not as an athletic director.
Yeah, not as an athletic director. Yeah. And then you stick a cell phone in your hand, where with every small, rare down moment you get, you jump on your cell phone. I know I do. We're very rarely bored. And the problem with that is creative thinking doesn't begin until you've been bored for 15 minutes. And so, again, because all of society is struggling with this overinformed nature, and their brains are tangled up and knotted up, they're not thinking about what they're thinking about because they're never bored for 15 minutes to engage creative thinking. This is a superpower. This is a hack that people can use to really, really have significant impact on whatever it is they're involved in. And so what happens is at about 15 minutes, your brain becomes of boredom, your brain becomes creative. And one of the things that is part of that creative process is you begin to see connections to things that you hadn't seen before. And so when you pause, engage in metacognition, think about what you're thinking about, allow your brain to be bored, allow it to unknot itself, to untangle itself, you begin to see connections. And now, after that has happened, now you begin to transition into being able to think critically about things. You'll also see things that are not connected that people are swearing are connected. And so this is where you make a transition from metacognition, being bored, taking time to think about what you're thinking about. That boredom creates creativity. That creativity begins to allow you to see things that are connected and see things that are not connected that people think are connected, right? You can see how this gets real complicated real fast. Mm-hmm. And if you don't take time, right, like you're all knotted up about it, you don't know which direction to go. Social media makes this 100 times worse because you got a million people out there. I'm one of them, sharing all these ideas and thoughts and things they think, all this kind of stuff. And so, but the reason that this is so important is because everyone is battling with this. So the moment you figure out how to rise above it, how to navigate through it, how to get around it, how to go under it, however you want to phrase that, the moment you figure out how to get through this all, you now are separating yourself as someone that can guide others. And so this metacognition, creative thinking into now critical thinking is taking facts, taking information, seeing what's connected, disconnecting things that people are trying to connect that ought not be connected. And you get all this, and now all of a sudden you can help middle school families, middle school student athletes really think through sports specialization, really think through, hey, should I be lifting weights at 12 years age, 13 years of age? You can help them think through, hey, like what are the best things I can be doing to help my athletic career? You can help them cut through that chaos because so few people are taking time to think about what they're thinking about, being bored long enough to think creatively, and then turning that into critical thinking. So few people are doing that. And now this is why you've got chaos in so many niches of life, so many industries of life, but certainly the easiest place for you and I to see that chaos is in high school athletics and middle school athletics. So people just have a million theories on a million things. And so I know this is probably pretty layered and pretty nuanced, but I found it to be very helpful and very successful as I was leading athletic departments.
No, that's like I said, that's good stuff. Because I mean, even at the middle school level or at the high school, it really doesn't matter. What you just said kind of can go into any of it. Because like you said, I think we're all the same way. A coach could walk into the office and say, hey, I saw this on TikTok or I saw this on social media. Let's try this. This school is doing this. This school is doing that. Let's try it. And most times it's like, hey, well, go try it, or sometimes we just tell them, no, that's not going to work. Well, but without really diving in and talking about it. And like you said, and thinking critically about it. Because again, we're the same way. We just got back from the NADC a couple weeks ago, and we got just pumped with a ton of ideas and information and things that are great. But it's how do we want to install, let's say if we got 10 things, we want to install all 10 at one time. Which we know that's not going to happen. And it's like you said, it's kind of taking all of that and finding maybe that one thing to focus on. But I like that and just kind of how you dissect everything. Because again, really makes you're thinking. I think because we all know as they say you got to pull the political hat on when you're making a decision, but are you really thinking about all ins and outs of each situation, or are you just trying to please who's sitting on the other table or on the other side of the table? So I think that's good stuff. Again, there we go. We got 2 podcasts in itself right there. So so kind of going off of leadership, you mentioned bold leadership. So kind of to you, what do you see in a bold leader?
Yeah. I heard a leader years ago say this, and I totally took it and have really run with it and used it a lot. And he was about to share something that he knew was going to be disruptive to his audience. I can't remember if we were sitting in a executive leadership meeting or a school board meeting or a parent association meeting. I can't remember what it was, but whatever he was about to share, he knew it was going to ruffle some feathers. But he knew he had to share it. And so he said, hey, what I'm about to share with you, he said, I am not trying to be rude, but I am trying to be bold, and let me tell you something, that short little statement really prepared the audience to understand his intentions on things. His intention was not to offend. His intention was not to stir them all up and create controversy, but there was something he was very convinced needed to be said. And so he was going to say it. But the fact that he established his intentions first really allowed what he shared to be received and discussed and even debated in a healthy way. And so that is kind of like, if I would put an umbrella on top of bold leadership, I would put that umbrella on top of bold leadership. There is times when we dodge being bold because we're afraid people think we're being rude or we're being unkind or and so for a leader, it's very important that you share bold things that you're convinced of. But it's also very important that you prepare people for the fact that you're going to share something bold with them. And that little statement, hey, I don't mean to be rude, but I do have to be bold here and share what you're going to share. So that's the umbrella underneath. And this kind of connects back to metacognition and critical thinking skills. You've got to become convinced about what you're convinced about. And so you've really got to decide as a leader, what are my values? One of the things that we often get wrong in education, I think, is we try and talk about neutral curriculum. There is no neutral curriculum because there is no neutral human beings that wrote the curriculum or are delivering the curriculum. And so one of the core values of education is that it passes along values and ideals. It's inescapable. And so it's very important for educational leaders, middle school ADs, in the context of this podcast, to really get clear on what their values are. Really, really get clear on that. Remember, this is the foundation to bold leadership. You get clear on what you value. You get clear on why you value it. And then the umbrella on top of it, you let people know, hey, listen, I am trying to do what's in the best interest of everyone involved. Here are the values that are important to me, that are guiding me in my decision-making process. And then in the middle, umbrella and foundation, in the middle there, you can plug in your issue. You can plug in your controversy. You can plug in your topic. And so not enough more and more leaders, because there's a lot of great leaders out there that do this really well. I think more and more leaders could do a better and better job of leading boldly if they were super clear on their values and they let those be the bedrock, the foundation to their decision-making. And on top of that, they put an umbrella of, hey, I'm not trying to be rude. I am going to be bold, but I'm not trying to be rude. And if you umbrella it and build it on a bedrock foundation of values that you've gotten clear on, then you can plug in your difficult matter, your difficult situation, and you'll probably be able to navigate it in a way that leaves you content, that leaves you confident that you are leading to the best of your capability. You might not have people happy with you. Nick Saban's got that great quote that if you want to make people happy, sell ice cream, don't lead. And so there's a lot of that there's a lot of wisdom in that little quote as well. So that's just what I think about the framework of bold leadership, the foundation of values. Clear on your values. Don't leave your values. Know what your values are. Know why they're your values. Put an umbrella on top of it of not rude, but bold. And then you'll be able to navigate some pretty complex scenarios in a way that leaves you confident that you're leading well.
Yeah. And just kind of on a side note, you got to make sure, especially at the middle school being, you got to make sure the principal's on board with that as well.
Yeah. Yep.
If the principal is not a bold leader, but you are, sometimes it can, go against each other. And so, making sure that everyone's on the same page, or at least just like you said, just going to that principal and say, hey, I'm fixing to have this conversation. I'm fixing to bring this up. I think this needs to be said, maybe what are your thoughts? Maybe he has a different way to kind of spin it, but like you said, but it's one of those is this needs to be done. This needs to change. This needs to be said, whatever the situation is, but making sure that, they have your back, because if it is a touchy situation, they're probably going to get a phone call.
Yep. I tell you what, Thomas, one of the best books I read this year, really one of the best books I read all year, is Impact Players by Liz Wiseman. She's the New York Times bestselling author of Multipliers, which was pretty good, but Impact Players was absolutely phenomenal. And it addresses some of what you just touched on there. How do you lead well when there's, we're all responsible to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that really stood out to me about that book is how important it is as a leader in your context to make sure that the agenda of the people you answer to, right? Know their agenda. And I don't use that word agenda in like a controversial kind of, clandestine cloak and dagger way. I mean, like they have an agenda. They have things they want to get done. They have reasons why they want to get them done. It's so important that so in this context, middle school AD and their building principal, it's so important that ADs know the agenda of their building principal and do everything you can to abide by that and help move that agenda forward, and so if, learning loss is a big concern, let's say in your building with your building principal, what ways can the athletic department help to contribute to that agenda item and help to begin to answer that problem? That might not be something that you as an AD care about one bit because you're focused on other things. But the moment you find out it's important for your leader in your building, you figure out how to add some value to that. And man, oh man, it's amazing how well things will begin to go inside of your building.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Like I said, I've probably mentioned it almost every podcast, but the relationship between the AD and the principal has got to be tight. Yep. And you got to be on the same page. And if you're not on the same page, then you usually some other things have to change. But that's good. I mean, because like I said, we got to answer to somebody, because again, the principal's got to answer to the superintendent as well, and the superintendent has an agenda.
That's right.
So yeah, we're all working our way up. So that's good. So kind of back to what you've done at Second Baptist. Like I said, you can talk about there or the school that you came from, if you want to talk more athletics. But is there something that you have done either there at Second Baptist or at one of the previous schools that you're most proud of?
That's just such a great question. I think it's important for leaders to reflect on that, especially during the holidays, when you've got maybe a few extra minutes on your hand, to kind of reflect on the things that you really feel like you've done well, have gone well as leaders. So often we're focused on solving the problems and heading off the controversies at the past. And, we're so steeped in that stuff that we forget that there's probably lots of value we've added as well. And so probably for me, I would say maybe it's a little bit ambiguous, probably lines up with some of my dissertation work. And that was just enhancing the experience for every single person that was involved under my leadership, trying to make sure that whether it was the small team in the individual sport, or it was, the star quarterback on the football team, making them all feel like what they're doing really matters. And one of the best ways you can do that as an athletic director and as a leader in any context, because I do it here in my context here at Second Baptist, is go to those teams, get some FaceTime with them. Doesn't take long at all. And remind them that what they're doing matters. Remind them that from your seat, as you see it, what you're doing, tennis player, what you're doing, marketing specialist, what you're doing, football coach, what you're doing, admissions representative, it matters. Like it really, really matters that you do this well. So to literally just take 30 seconds and tell people that, it sounds comically simple, but it really does move the needle in helping people go out and continue to do inspired work. That's one of the things that just feels more and more important to me. I just really, I'm not all that worried with whether or not people know me or give me credit for anything. I just want to share things. I want to have interactions with people that they go out and they just do great work, because I know that is a big part of their most fulfilling version of their life, is that they're out there just doing great work and whatever it is they're doing. And so I think, over the last 6 or 7 years, I've probably honed in on all sorts of ways to do that and do that well. So whether it's in an athletic context, a diver, on your swim team, or it's a goalie on your lacrosse team, or it's your high jumper on your track team, or it's the coaches of those teams, helping them to really sense that what they do matters in your eyes. So I think that's probably a pretty ambiguous, very organic answer. But I've gotten enough feedback on that I feel pretty good that I've done that well. And it's something I believe I'll probably continue to do better and better.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it goes back to basically there are no major versus minor sports, because, every sport is major to that kid and to that family that's playing it. And so it's making sure that like you said, that tennis player that can barely swing a racket feels just as important in your athletic department as that star quarterback. And like we mentioned earlier, is social media is very easy to do that, but it also could be very, on the opposite side too, is if you're never posting the tennis and the golf and the swimming, and you're always just posting the football and basketball, that could come back to bite you too. But that's good. I believe 100% in that as well, as making sure that those sports that are to the world considered minor don't feel minor. That they feel major. Sometimes maybe I spent more time at those sports than I did the other sports, and just to make sure they understood that, like you said, I value who they are. I value the coaches. I value what the time they're putting in. And so I know for me personally, especially when I was at the high school, when we had more sports, I think I spent a little more time at those than the others. But then that goes back to the coaching relationship, because then the quote unquote bigger sports are like, hey, why do you never come out to us? And so it's finding that balance, but that's good. So kind of in closing, I know we've talked about a ton, but what do you think, if you could pick one? I know it's hard to pick one. A lot of people just pick one and kind of spun it off into 2 or 3. But if you could pick one personality trait or strength that a middle school AD needs to be successful, what do you think that is?
Oh man, there's just as you were asking that question, I probably had 4 run through my mind. Yep. I'll give you 2. The first one I would give you is humility. Humility solves pretty much every problem. I think every person problem I've ever had in my existence, not just my career, my existence, has been in somewhat caused by a lack of humility, or a selfishness. And so if you're going to lead, particularly in an educational context where it's altruistic in nature, you're trying to guide young people, you're trying to help young people grow. There's a selflessness that has to exist. Tim Keller's written a great little book called The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness. And that's just a great little book on this topic. And so I would say that's important for any leader in any context: humility, selflessness, because most of the problems you have will ultimately be caused or worsened by pride or selfishness. And then specifically in the context of leading in an educational setting with parents and student athletes at the middle school age, I would say communication skills is a huge deal. Create not just a communication skills, create a rhythm of communication, and so some of the low hanging fruit on that is, send out, your weekly email every week, never miss it. So if your weekly email goes out Tuesdays at 6 p.m., send it out Tuesday at 6 p.m. every single time. Create a little template that you use. And it's not so much that you have to build these long emails or anything, but you just have to communicate rhythmically, not just consistently, but rhythmically. So every Tuesday, send out that email or whatever it might be. Make sure your coaches are doing the same thing. If you're going to share information on, let's say you're going to celebrate, the achievements, celebrate the same achievement in every single context. Don't be inconsistent in your celebration of achievements. And so that requires time to think through, hey, what are the achievements that we're going to celebrate around here? Because you do want there to be some teeth to the posting and the communicating about achievement. They don't want to roll their eyes and you think you're just like an ooey gooey, positive about everything. Nothing's ever wrong. No, you want to create standards of achievement. And when a young person gets there, a coach gets there, man, we're not going to miss the opportunity to communicate that. So that creates another communication rhythm for you. And so those are probably the two things that I would really encourage leaders in any context. And then middle school ADs, humility, selflessness, and then communication rhythms are really, really critical for really educational leaders in any context.
Good deal. Well, I appreciate you jumping on with us, especially during your Christmas break. And if there's a lot of stuff in this podcast, so if there's people that want to reach out and kind of pick your brain a little more, if you just kind of want to tell them the best way to get in touch with you, and like I said, we'll tag you on the social media account so they could do that as well. But if you just kind of want to let people know how to get in contact with you, for after they hear this, they're probably gonna have some questions.
So probably I'm very, very active on Twitter. And so probably Twitter is the best way, at Dr_Chris Hobbs. So at Dr_Chris Hobbs. Love to connect and meet people out there and share information out there. I've also got a blog that regularly posts there, and I've got like a weekly thread that'll go out on a leadership topic out there. So just love to really inspire people and to go out and just do their best work. I care less whether or not you remember who I am, but I love the idea of people going out and doing great work.
Yes, it's good stuff. Make sure you give him a follow because, like I said, I enjoy reading the stuff he puts out about leadership, and so that's how we connected. So yeah, he definitely communicates back with you if you reach out to him. So, but again, I appreciate it, Dr. Hobbs, for coming on and jumping on and spending an hour with us. And this episode will come out on February. Well, you'll be hearing it on February 3rd. So about a month after we record it. But again, thanks for jumping on, and for all the listeners, we'll see you next time.
Thomas, thanks for having me.
This episode was sponsored by Gipper. Use the code MSAD10 for 10% off any Gipper plan at Gipper.com.